Welcome to Perkins Early Connections Virtual Conference. In today's session, IFSP to IEP, Planning for Preschool, I'll be sharing information on how you can plan for your child's transition to preschool and what the process for transition from early intervention looks like. My name is Brenda Allaire, and I'm the Infant Toddler Coordinator with Perkins Community Programs. I'm also a teacher of students with visual impairments and currently work with a small caseload of children birth to 3. I originally came to Perkins 18 years ago to attend the infant toddler program with my daughter, who is blind. Like you, I also attended this conference to connect with others and learn more about ways to help her. She and I have weathered many transitions together since that initial one, and I hope you will find that this session helps you as you and your child step beyond early intervention. Today, I'll be talking about the differences between an IFSP and an IEP, understanding the role of the EI program, the school district, and you as the parent in the transition process, and building connections and resources for families. Throughout this session, I've included information about how COVID-19 might impact your experience of transition. The information related to that is current as of the filming of this presentation in Massachusetts, but is subject to change and may be different in your own state. For the most current Massachusetts information, please visit the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education COVID-19 Resource and Information website. If you have a child under age 2, some of the information here may change between now and when your child is ready to transition. Please know that if your child is connected with Perkins Infant Toddler Program, we will continue to work with you and your family throughout your time in early intervention, including through transition. Pictures: girl wearing glasses playing with red beads. Boy wearing glasses playing on the seesaw while mom smiles. Boy smiling at toys on a light box. Girl in a preschool graduation cap. That girl, of course, is my daughter on her first graduation from preschool class, one of many of our transitions. Quotation: your life is a story of transition. You are always leaving one chapter behind while moving on to the next. Transitions can be difficult. We are leaving behind what we know and stepping into something new. But transitions happen for all of us all of the time. We transition to becoming adults, to becoming parents, to new jobs, to new homes, and new friendships. Along the way, we learn new things about ourselves. Your child, too, will experience many transitions in their lives. Early intervention. If your child is under 3, you're most likely involved in an early intervention program now. In Massachusetts, there are 60 such programs serving infants and toddlers and their families across the state. Children qualify for early intervention if they exhibit developmental delays or if, due to a diagnosed condition, they are at risk for those delays. At age 3, children transition out of that early intervention program. For children with visual impairments, including those with multiple disabilities, the next step in their experience is usually the preschool special education system. Picture of a toddler girl seated at a table with toys, crying. For many of you, this might be how you're originally feeling about transition. I know it was for me. Clearly it was for my child, because this is also my daughter. She cried a lot when we were preparing to move to preschool. Some of you may have been involved in early intervention since your child was only a few months old. Others may have come into a program a little later, depending on your child's needs. In any case, you've likely developed strong relationships with your child's providers, and you may be worried about what comes next. The transition from early intervention has always been challenging for families. Early intervention may have played a vital role in your understanding of your child's needs and may have become an important resource for you and for your family. With the added complexities of navigating our new normal through COVID-19, this change can feel especially hard right now. I hope that learning about the process can help ease some of that anxiety. IFSP. In early intervention, an IFSP, or Individualized Family Service Plan, focuses on the needs of both the infant toddler and the family. It might include specific goals for development of the child, such as learning to eat independently or learning to sit up, but can also include family goals, such as being able to go out to activities together. Services like therapies and teaching are provided in the child's natural environments: home, daycare, perhaps even grandma's house. Early intervention is governed by Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, federal special education law, which includes children birth to age 3. Image, a drawing of a school bus. An IEP, Individualized Education Program, on the other hand, is governed by Part B of the IDEA federal law. This part of the law covers children ages 3 to 22 and is focused on school-based needs. Children are determined eligible for special education based on a diagnosed disability and how it may impact their ability to make effective progress in school and/or to access the general education curriculum. Unlike an IFSP, an IEP is focused only on the child and is written to include specific information on what types of specially designed instruction are needed to help the child make progress in school. For example, in early intervention, which is guided by the IFSP, the parents drive the bus. They determine what the goals are, what the providers will focus on, and where the services will occur. In special education programming, on the other hand, guided by an IEP, the parents are no longer drivers. They can and should still provide direction, and their input does shape the plan, but the goals and services are based on the child's needs within the educational program. Image, a set of building blocks. So, how do we get from an IFSP to an IEP? Transition planning. Each time your child's EI team reviews the IFSP, which should be about every 6 months, they should be talking about transition. By the time your child is 2 years old, the IFSP should include specific information for you and your family about transition process, from resources that you might need to how to plan for evaluations specific to your child. All children who are potentially eligible for Part B, remember that's school-based special education, must be referred to their local school districts by the early intervention program. A referral does not mean the child is automatically eligible, just that the district is aware of the child as someone who potentially may need services. The EI program will also schedule a TPC, or Transition Planning Conference, at least 90 days before your child's 3rd birthday. At that meeting, you, your child's service coordinator, a school district representative, and possibly other members of your child's EI team will talk about what the district preschool programs look like, what assessments might be needed to help determine if your child is eligible, and other details about preschool, such as how to register your child for school. In order to determine eligibility for special education, schools must evaluate a child's needs. This includes all areas of a suspected disability, which for children with visual impairments should include orientation and mobility. In Massachusetts, the consent to evaluate form does not specifically include an area for this evaluation, so parents and early intervention teams should be sure that it is written in. The law says that students can start special education on their 3rd birthday. Of course, in order for that to occur, the eligibility determination and IEP meeting must happen prior to that date so that the team can write the plan and so that as a parent, you have time to review and sign it in order for services to begin. Image, 4 puzzle pieces fitting together. During the transition process, everyone has a role to play. As your child's parent, you are the most knowledgeable person on the team. You know your child's needs, what their challenges are, what they really love to do. Being able to share that information will be key to developing a successful transition plan. In this next section of the presentation, we'll look at how each of the pieces of transition fit together, including preparation, organization, assessments, and connection. Preparation for parents. Preparing for your child's transition can sometimes feel overwhelming. There's a lot to think about, but let's take a look at some key areas for you to focus on. First, consider attending a workshop or training, much like this one. Many early intervention programs offer parent trainings about transition. Check with your child's service coordinator to see if there are any upcoming, or to see if the program is currently offering webinars or other virtual sessions. Other agencies, such as the Federation for Children with Special Needs in Massachusetts, offer free trainings and are currently hosting online learning opportunities. An additional list of resources for those trainings will be provided. Consider visiting the school settings. If you are considering several school options, you may want to see if the programs you're thinking about are offering virtual tours, so you can get a sense of what the environment looks like there. It's important to note that the transition process looks the same, regardless of where your child will eventually go to school. Consider asking your child's TVI and/or their O&M to join you for the tour of the school. Again, this can be a virtual tour if that's an option right now. Or, if not, ask about the setting at your child's transition planning conference. Knowing what the classroom setup looks like, what the environment of the school consists of, perhaps even if there's a playground, is important for you and your child's TVI to help think about any accommodations your child might need to access the physical space. Finally, think about all of your child's needs. Do they have medical issues that will need to be managed during a school day, such as G-tube feedings or breathing treatments? Will they need help with things like putting on coats or shoes? Do they use a communication device or sign language or perhaps gestures? Are they used to being with caregivers other than parents? While we can't know right now what school will look like in the fall of our new normal, it's important to think about what your child will need to be able to learn. Organization. As you work through the transition process, you'll need access to lots of documentation. Getting all of your child's important information organized will help reduce the stress of locating documents when you need them. And as a tip, this will be an ongoing thing. You will need constant access to documents, so getting organized now is a good step in the right direction. Think about the kind of organization system that works best for you. Do you like to have hard copies of paperwork, or do you prefer electronic files? If your child sees a lot of medical specialists, the hospital or provider portal might contain all of their medical records for easy access. Thinking ahead to the ways in which you might need to share information, it might be helpful to have the most important documents as electronic files for easy sharing via email. What do you want the school to know about your child? Many parents find it helpful to create an all about me document to share with the new team. It can include information about your child's specific needs, but also about things like their favorite song, what toys they really love to play with, and what they've learned to do recently. Remember, the IEP is child focused, and you want the team to write it in a way that recognizes the whole child. There are a few key documents that schools will want, including a copy of your most recent eye report for your child. This is a good thing to have handy, and if you don't have one currently, connect with your child's physician to get one. You'll also need a copy of your child's current IFSP. Again, if you don't currently have one, your child service coordinator can help you get access to that. You'll also want to have on hand copies of any assessments or evaluations that may have been done outside of early intervention. For example, low vision evaluations or assistive communication assessments. If your child has complex needs, you may need additional medical records to help the school plan for things like emergency medications or therapies. For children who are legally blind in Massachusetts, you'll want to have the contact information for your Massachusetts Commission for the Blind children's worker, as well as your child's certificate of blindness. If you live in a state other than Massachusetts, you should connect with your child service coordinator to find out what kinds of documentation those schools may require. Image, a team of people surrounded by a description of the IEP process. While the IEP is a written document that describes your child's educational plan, getting there is a process. The first step, referral to the school district, sometimes referred to as the local educational agency, LEA, will be done by your child service coordinator. After that, the school, or in some cases, the early intervention team, will conduct assessments and evaluations. These will look at how your child's disability impacts their educational needs and access to the school and the curriculum. Based on the results of those assessments, the school will determine if your child is eligible for special education. In Massachusetts, there's a very specific flowchart that's included in the IEP and which school districts will go through at the time of your meeting. So let's talk a little bit more about the evaluation process itself. Evaluations and assessments. As we've said, evaluations are used to determine a child's eligibility for special education. Eligibility is determined by the child's diagnosis or disability and whether or not the disability impacts their ability to make effective progress in school and/or access to general education. For children transitioning from early intervention, things we want to think about would be, would the child continue to make progress without their current supports in place? Do they have access to age-appropriate learning materials without additional supports? For a child with a visual impairment, it's critical that they have evaluations to address the specific needs relating to their visual impairment. These assessments may be done by a school district TVI, or in some cases, in Massachusetts, by the child's Perkins teacher in early intervention. Children should have a functional vision evaluation to assess how they are utilizing any residual vision and what accommodations and curriculum materials they might need in school. For children with a diagnosis of cortical cerebral visual impairment, a CVI range should also be conducted. They should also have a learning media assessment, which will look at the various sensory channels, visual, auditory, and tactile, to determine in what ways the child learns best. This can also be used to help teams think about whether or not a child requires Braille instruction. An orientation and mobility evaluation, which should be conducted by a certified orientation and mobility specialist, is crucial in making sure a child will be able to safely move about their school, participate in all areas of learning, and access other areas of the environment, such as the playground or perhaps the gym. As part of the process for transition, parents will need to sign a consent to evaluate form, giving the district permission to conduct assessments. Again, in Massachusetts, that form does not specifically include any of the above assessments, so families and/or service coordinators should be sure that those are specifically written into that form. Notes on assessment during COVID-19. The previous slide described the evaluation and assessment process as it normally plays out during transition. However, COVID-19 has had a significant impact on how early intervention programs and school districts are able to work. As of May 27th, schools in Massachusetts remain closed, and early intervention programs are conducting all of their visits via telehealth. Because of this, providers may not be able to complete certain types of evaluations, especially those that require in-person or hands-on, such as physical therapy or even some functional vision assessments. In order to get as much information as possible about a child, school districts may request that early intervention programs share the results of assessments they've done, such as any recent Battelle developmental inventory, which is a test used in early intervention for all children, or other parent questionnaire style assessments, perhaps a sensory learning profile, or a speech language evaluation that's completed with you as the parent. Guidance from lead agencies, and in Massachusetts, that's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, is stating that all children will be reevaluated once school reopens. Image of the IEP process with IEP development highlighted. The evaluations and assessments, along with the information that you as the parent have shared about your child, are used to make a determination of eligibility. Once the district has determined that the child is eligible, again using the flow chart as part of the IEP, then the IEP can be developed. The IEP is a written document that describes the child's educational program, including goals for learning, accommodations and modifications for curriculum and learning materials, specific services to be provided, including TVI and O&M, specially designed instruction, and any transportation needs. The IEP is developed by the entire team, which includes you as the parent. Image, toddler girl smiling wearing sunglasses. Many parents focus on the service delivery grid section of the IEP, which is understandable because that's where most of your child's services, who will be seeing them and how often, will be listed. But one of the most important sections is actually the vision statement. The vision statement is what you envision for your child's preschool experience. What do you hope they accomplish in the next year? What kinds of skills would you like the team to focus on? The vision statement guides the team in developing the goals and objectives in the IEP and thinking about your child's learning experience. It helps them and you think about what is most important for your child, not in the context of home, but in the context of preschool. Image: young boy walking on a sidewalk using a white cane, Braille paper. Here's an example of a vision statement one family used on their child's IEP. Billy's parents would like to see him build the necessary skills to succeed in an integrated kindergarten program once he turns 5. The team's vision for Billy is for him to participate in an integrated preschool program and to progress in all areas of development. This sample is taken from wonderbaby.com as a sample of a Massachusetts IEP. In your child's vision statement, you may want to be more specific. Do you want your child to begin recognizing Braille letters? Do you hope that they can travel safely through the hallways in the school, perhaps to the physical therapy room? Would you like to see them develop new relationships with peers and with teachers? It can help to come to the IEP meeting with a vision statement prepared ahead of time. In the moment, many families find that they are overwhelmed at the meeting. There may be many new faces and lots of information from assessments. Having a vision statement ready to share can also serve as a reminder that you as the parent are a critical part of your child's educational team. In some cases, it can be helpful to send your vision statement by email to your team chair or preschool liaison. This way, it can be copied and pasted directly into the IEP using your words specifically. Important timelines. Embedded within IDEA are timelines that school districts must follow when a child is potentially eligible for special education. When a child is referred for special education evaluation, which can happen in a situation now where your child's being referred directly from early intervention to the school district, or for some children when they're already enrolled in school and concerns become more clear. In those situations, the school district must request parental consent within 5 days of receiving the referral. An evaluation consent form is then required to be signed by the parent before any evaluations can begin. School districts then must complete assessments within 30 school working days of receiving parental consent for assessments and testing. And they then have an additional 15 school working days to meet to consider the results of the assessment. So from the time that you sign parental consent until the time of your child's IEP meeting should be about 45 school working days. It might be helpful to start keeping a calendar so that you can be aware of the timelines for your child. Of course, there are some special considerations right now due to COVID-19. My recommendation would be patient. All children will be reevaluated once we return to physical schools. Districts in large part are working hard to adapt to the restrictions that COVID-19 has placed on all of us. Additional information about some timelines. Meeting invitations will be sent out at least 7 days in advance of an IEP meeting. Meeting invitations should include at a minimum you as the parents, a representative for the school district, sometimes called a team chair or perhaps a preschool liaison, a classroom teacher, in this case the preschool teacher, and someone who can interpret the evaluation results. For this, it may be your early intervention team or perhaps the therapists at the school who conducted the assessments. Families also have the right to invite to the meeting anyone they feel has important information about their child. This can be somebody who spends significant amount of time with your child, perhaps somebody that you feel comfortable with if you are starting to feel overwhelmed. Importantly, you should have somebody with you to help take notes. There will be a lot happening at the meeting and you will want something to refer to later. At this time, of course, many districts are choosing to email invitations to their attendees. So be sure you have the correct contact information for your child's therapists and other providers. Parents can and should request in writing reports or summaries of results of the assessments that the team has completed. After the request has been made to the district must make copies available to the parents within 2 days before the team meeting. The district may charge some copying fees for those documents. Of course, again, we have some considerations around COVID-19. Right now, many districts are holding meetings virtually if their school buildings are closed or if parents are unable to attend in person. However, federal and state level guidance has made it clear that there are no changes to the timelines that are included in IDEA. Image of the IEP process with placement highlighted. The IEP is really made up of two components. In the first, the team decides on the child's educational plan based on the results of the assessments. The plan will include things like what types of accommodations or modifications the child might need, including specially designed instruction, such as that provided by a TBI, what services will be provided, and what goals the team will work on with your child. In the second part, the team decides on placement, where the child's educational services will actually take place. IDEA, again, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, makes clear that every child with a disability must receive their education alongside students without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate. Within the law, this is known as the Least Restrictive Environment, or LRE requirement. For many children, the least restrictive environment will be in their local public school, in either a general, integrated, or intensive classroom, depending on the child's needs. Some teams will decide together that a child's needs are better served in a collaborative program or in a specialized school. This is what is known as a continuum of services. Decisions about placement can be very complex, and parents who wish to further explore options for their schools should discuss this with their EI team, including the TBI, as part of preparing for transition. Once the IEP has been developed, meaning the school district has put all of the information in writing, including educational goals, service delivery, and placement, and provided that document to you as a parent, you should spend some time reviewing it. Some districts will provide a draft of the IEP at the meeting. Some may even provide what they consider a final copy and ask that you sign it at that time. Because the IEP is so important, you should not sign it while you're still at the meeting. Take it home, take time to look it over. If your early intervention providers attended the meeting with you, have them review it and give you feedback. As you review the IEP, think about some of these questions. Does the IEP reflect what you discussed at the team meeting? Is the information about your child accurate? Do you agree with the team's decision about services and placement? In most cases, parents review the IEP, agree to the plan, and sign it, at which point the school begins providing the services as outlined. It's important to note that the IEP requires signatures in two areas, as parents must agree to both the plan and to the placement. However, in some cases, the district and the parent cannot come to an agreement on some portion of the IEP. In that case, parents have the right to reject the IEP plan in full or in part. It is absolutely critical that you do not reject the initial IEP in full. Your child's early intervention services end the day before they turn 3, and without some IEP services in place, they will not be able to continue receiving instruction or services. In future IEPs, your child has what is called stay put rights, which means that the current IEP that is signed stays in effect until the team can agree on a new one. That does not happen to be the case here because your child doesn't have an existing IEP. However, you can reject portions of the IEP. Perhaps you are rejecting the lack of services. If, for example, you think your child needs O&M instruction and it wasn't included. Or perhaps you're unhappy with some of the specific goals that have been developed. You are allowed to reject portions of the IEP. Whatever portions you do accept are put into place immediately, and the team can reconvene to discuss the rejected portions. During COVID-19, it's possible that districts will continue providing at least some instruction via distance or virtual learning. So you will want to discuss with your team how that might impact your child's education. Image, New England Patriots football team. As you've seen throughout this presentation, a successful transition from early intervention to a preschool program takes a lot of effort from many people. Much like a sports team, a successful IEP is achieved when each member works together to create a plan that works best for the child. If, as you go through the process, you find that your team isn't working quite the way you had hoped, there are some ways to address that issue. You can work to partner with your child's providers and share what you know with the goal of helping them to better understand and support his or her needs. You can consider taking additional trainings to better understand your rights and responsibilities as a parent. You can get involved in your district's Special Education Parent Advisory Council, often called a SPED PAC. In Massachusetts, these councils are required by the state to offer basic rights training to parents at least once per year. In extreme cases, hearing, mediation, and other legal avenues exist, but they are beyond the scope of this presentation. For most of you, this will be the first of many IEPs. You'll have many more meetings, some that will go very well, and some that will leave you frustrated. The key to positive outcomes will be collaboration and partnerships with all of the members of your IEP team. Throughout this presentation, I've mentioned several ways in which our current circumstances regarding COVID-19 have impacted the transition process. I'd like to take some time now to review these special considerations. Remember that this information is subject to change as states and lead agencies gather information and update their guidance to school districts. For now, early intervention programs should continue to make referrals to the school districts. Despite the fact that many school buildings are closed, districts themselves are open and accepting referrals for children who may be eligible for special education. The existing timelines set out in IDEA for meetings and services are still in place. 90-day transition planning conference meetings, and IEP services that should begin on a child's third birthday. And these timelines should be followed by the programs. Of course, summer birthdays will continue to be impacted as they were prior to COVID-19. If your child has a birthday that falls during the summer, you will want to take special time to have a conversation with your child service coordinator around the timelines for evaluation and provision of services. School districts may not be able to conduct all of their evaluations, as we've discussed earlier. So the team together can consider developing a partial IEP in which specific areas are addressed now and others are determined at a later date. All meetings can and should still be held, even if they are being held virtually. TPC and IEP meetings can be held using a variety of different online platforms, and all service providers should still be invited to attend. Because of the limitations of assessment, I know we've talked about that a lot, but it is an important note here. School districts may elect to use the child's IFSP, their current early intervention plan, in place of an IEP, an educational plan, for up to 1 year. However, this does not mean the child stays in their current early intervention program. Rather, the child would continue to receive the services as outlined in their IFSP, but with service providers from the school district. In essence, the school becomes responsible for the needs of your child. In some cases, school districts have contracted with early intervention agencies to provide these services until the fall, but that is a school district decision, and you should have a conversation with an early intervention program if this is a concern. As of the filming of this presentation, all Massachusetts schools are closed, and districts are providing education via distance and online learning. During your child's meeting, you will want to ask how the school anticipates providing services both from a classroom perspective and for your child's related service providers, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech language pathology. Building connections. As you prepare for transition, building connections with other families can help you learn more about the process. Connect with other families of children with visual impairments. If you've been attending a parent group, continue sharing information with each other. If possible, connect with other parents of children with visual impairments who are slightly older than yours. They have been through the process and they may have important ideas or tips to share. Talk with your early intervention service coordinator. A significant part of their role is supporting families through transition, and they may be able to share information specific to your school district's preschool programs, as well as community resources that may be valuable to you, your child, and your family. Again, seek out resources specific to children with visual impairments. Visual impairment is a low incidence disability, and there may be no other children in your child's school district with a visual impairment, and your child's providers may not have access to important pieces of information. As a child's parent, you can help them learn and have better ways to work with your child. During the COVID-19 school closure period, children in Massachusetts who have been receiving services from Perkins through early intervention and who have not been able to transition to Part B services at their 3rd birthday can continue to stay connected to Perkins through August of 2020. Please connect with your child's individual teacher for additional information. If your child is not in Massachusetts, again, please connect with your child's service coordinator for information about Part B. Image, toddler girl touching a tactile book while sitting with her mom. Preparing your child for preschool. In the end, your child is the one who will be transitioning from their current team of providers to a brand new school setting. They may be nervous, excited, or a combination of both, much as you likely are. To help prepare your child for preschool, consider requesting a visit to the program when there are no other children present, so that your child can explore the new space. Of course, if the physical location is not available, consider a virtual visit or at least an online meeting with the teachers and staff to help your child become familiar with their new providers. Children may also benefit from books or stories about their time in early intervention and what preschool might be like. While some commercial books are available, you can personalize a story for your child by using photos of their providers, tactile materials to represent experiences they have had, or communication tools to help them listen to their own story. Your child's TVI can help you with creating something meaningful to you and your child. Images, little boy with glasses playing in a ball pit, toddler girl laughing while being held by her mom, toddler girl smiling while looking at a stuffed animal. With so much happening during this time, especially now, while we are all facing new challenges, it can be hard to think about your child's 3rd birthday as something other than a transition date. But this birthday is a cause for celebration, just like the others. Celebrate their accomplishments, their early intervention experiences, celebrate how much they and you have grown in the past 3 years. Our lives are full of transitions. This is just one step on your journey. A list of resources regarding parent trainings, information about the transition process in Massachusetts, and early childhood resources will be available, including links to the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Thank you. Thank you for being part of our first virtual Early Connections conference. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about this presentation, or if you'd like additional information about the Perkins Infant Toddler Program.